Welcome to the So You Want to Start a Business podcast. Welcome. I am your host, Ingrid Thompson. This is a podcast for and about entrepreneurs and business leaders who think big, who take intentional action to create business success, financial independence, and who make a difference in the world. My aim is to provide a helpful, lively, and thought-provoking podcast, and based on your feedback, it is all of this and more. We're all keen to build our businesses so we can have an impact in the world and live a life we love, generating healthy cash flow, sustained profits, and paying ourselves for what we do. Listen in because the So You Want to Start a Business podcast has been made just for you. I am your host, Ingrid Thompson, and I have been running my own business, Healthy Numbers, for almost 20 years. And over that time, I have worked with literally hundreds of people to help them build and grow their own business, successful and thriving businesses. In this podcast, I speak with inspiring entrepreneurs and business owners who tell their business stories, and they tell it like it is. And in fact, today's guest absolutely tells it like it is. The ups and the downs. Each episode is your opportunity to pick up tactics to try in your own business. I truly believe you are going to get a ton of value from today as we welcome Ginger Johnson, because she just is so full of wisdom. But here's what she has to say about one of my favorite topics, money.
Thank you for talking about this, Ingrid. Not enough people are talking about money. Talk about sex quicker than we talk about money. Let's talk about money. When we're talking about money, how is my business viable? If that's one chunk.
Yeah.
My business is viable because, first of all, I'm bound and determined to build the life I want, and that requires money. Money is a tool. I am really glad that I grew up with a positive money mindset. I was taught how to manage my finances. I still have my first original checkbook register. Raise your hands right now if you're listening to this and this is you. Like, do yourself a money dance, because that you're really fortunate, truly. I said, Look, you can't change the world if you're not making money. Yeah. And this doesn't mean gouging. It doesn't mean being greedy. It means being real about what your needs are. And frankly, like another one of my friends says, Jonathan Christian, brilliant marketer, says, people who pay attention.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding us of that one.
People who pay attention. Yep, could not agree more with that. Ginger is a terrific guest. There is so much in this interview. We talk about how there's room for everyone in the market, and if you are really good at what you do, people will be drawn to you. Do not give yourself away for free, she says, and that's not just about you. We talk about how this actually affects an entire industry when there's this race to the bottom, and I see this all the time in so many sectors of the business. It is such a disservice to your industry to underprice yourself. As always, there is no advertising on this podcast apart from me and my book and my guest. And Ginger has a book which she talks about during the interview, so listen out for that. This episode is brought to you by me and my book with the same name as the podcast, So You Want to Start a Business. If you'd like a complimentary copy, head over to healthynumbers.com.au and you only have to pay the postage. If you're looking for a Kindle version, head to Amazon or wherever you buy your books online. Enough from me. Let's listen to what Ginger has to say to us about starting and running her own business and so much more. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hi, and here we are today with Ginger Johnson. Hello, Ginger. How are you going today?
Hello, Ingrid. I'm better with you.
Thank you so much. Now, where are you in the world right now?
Where in the world am I? I am not with Waldo. I am in Talent, Oregon, which is southern and mostly western Oregon, about an hour from the coast.
About an hour from the coast on the west side of the US. Fantastic. Right. So we're kind of just on the other side of the ocean, aren't we?
Yes, just a hop, skip, and a flight away.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, except I'm in today and you're in yesterday. So as you would see it, you're in today and I'm in tomorrow. So yeah.
We're ahead of your time as usual, Ingrid.
Indeed. All right. So serious business. What is your business?
I am in the human connection business, Ingrid. And what that means is I teach people why and how to connect on purpose with other people. That's it.
Very, very nice. And so when did you start this business? And is this the business you started, or did it kind of evolve from something else?
Evolution is a wonderful thing, isn't it, Ingrid? I have been in business for myself for going on 20 years.
Wonderful.
And about 2.5 years ago, if you can picture a super tanker out in the ocean and it gets orders, you're the captain, and they say, okay, about face, turn around. So you start turning that ship. That was me about 2.5 years ago, turning my super tanker around. I had been doing that other thing, and I didn't know what the new thing was, but I knew I needed to shift for all kinds of reasons. I started turning, and I realized about a little way into the turn, like, oh, I know what it is. It's going to be connectivity. And so I turned that super tanker, and I've been in that trajectory now for a little over 2 years. And it's all, you know this, Ingrid, we're an amalgamation of who we are, what we've done, what we've seen, what we've experienced, and so forth. So business is this massive adventure. And that was one of the turning points of the adventure for me.
It's amazing, isn't it? And the reason I knew that there had to be evolution and change is that 20 years ago, starting a business, it's a different business completely. The world was such a different place 20 years ago.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Why did you start a business 20 years ago? What was going on? Because, today everybody wants to have a business, or pretty much everybody has, even if it's a quiet secret they keep to themselves. But 20 years ago, what was happening?
Sure. Great question. I was seemingly at the top of the heap. When people say, oh, I had a really good job, I always think that's a kind of oxymoronic. We really need to unpack those boxes of sentences, because I was at the top of the heap. I was managing a multi-million-dollar retail hardware store. Love hardware. Ingrid, you got any projects? I'll come right over there and help. And I realized that it was not going to be the long haul. Even though I thought I wanted it to be the long haul, I love so many things about it. There were certain constraints with the ownership. This is not a judgment. It's like, I'm not going to be the best fit for this anymore. So I took a month off. Gave myself a month grace. I slept for a lot of long, uninterrupted periods. I read for the first time in about 1.5 years. It had become a really stressful situation. And just like I got myself into it, I needed to extract myself too. So there's some juice for the business listeners. Like, if you're going to do this, you get to make the choice to get in. You also get to make the choice to get out. So I made that choice. I gave myself a month. It was January of 2003. And I then woke up on February 1st and I said, okay, I'm at the Y in the road. And here's the why. The why is either I risk working for someone else again, or I look into starting my own business. And until that moment, Ingrid, I had never thought of starting my own business. So that's how I started this whole wild adventure of, quote, being my own boss.
Yeah, it's really, I love the way you just said there that you either could choose to do this in a similar situation and for someone else, or you could head down this being your own boss path, because that is the crossroad that many people sit at, isn't it? They know that what they've got's not working, so they actually have that as an option: stay where we are, or look for something somewhere else, or head into our own
build
path.
Build something that you want to make.
Yeah. So what did you think at the time, and what did you want that business to give you? Like when you said, okay, so I could do this or I could be my own boss, what did you think being your own boss was going to give you?
I had no idea, Ingrid.
Okay.
I knew, well, and that's not entirely flippant. I knew some things, and what I've learned is, just like with my hardware career, I worked with a hardware store ownership group that was excellent at what they were doing and really focused on the customer experience and their team and their culture. It was outstanding. So I learned what to do. I worked with another one where I learned what not to do. So the really short answer to that is I knew what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And so I was going to go find what I did want based on the previous employer and some other things. I've taught middle school. I've had some wonderful superiors. So I thought, what are the best pieces of where I've been? And then how do I build my own ship going forward?
Yeah.
One of the most interesting things for me is, like a lot of your previous guests and yourself and so forth, there's so many things we, quote, can do. We have the wherewithal and the gumption and the drive and the desire and the service mindset and all the things you want to say to do lots of things. So then to decide what thing to do was a really interesting conversation. It was very fun. It was very freeing. That's also a critical part of thinking. So you want to start a business, you want to be in business, like get ready to get in bed with that thing for several years, because It takes a while to get the super tanker turned and cranking.
Yeah, and I like to think of it, I like that you use the super tanker because it is so hard to move around. But I think of starting a business as like launching a rocket. I mean, I love space and space travel. And, when you watch, I can remember watching, those Apollo aircrafts and that countdown. And, now with SpaceX and, I've been to Cape Canaveral and that energy that it takes to get that off the ground. And that's what it takes. And it's this lead up and this lead time and this, preparation. And, you don't just pop a rocket out there and it goes off. There's years of all this.
Counting down.
There's a countdown. And, okay. So speaking of countdown, so you've got this 2003, you make this decision, you start to have a business. When did it feel real? Was there a moment as you were traveling along this path that you went, holy moly, now I'm in business?
I think there's several moments. One was I woke up and like I shared, I decided I was going to do this thing after I did some research. And I started doing the thing. I started my very first company, which was the Little Pillow Company. I made pillows from scratch. I don't know anybody else on the planet who does that. But I started doing that. And I thought that the way to do it was to put your head down and work as hard as you could and only focus on that. A month into that thinking, Ingrid, I woke up one day and I think my circuits shorted because I lost it. I thought, holy buckets, I'm killing myself here. I'm waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm leaving my PJs on. I'm going into my studio. I'm sewing all day. I'm going to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock. I'm like, this is not what it's supposed to be for me. So there was a moment there like, okay, I'm in business because I want to make money. I want to, share this thing that I brought to life, all these things. Those are just such powerful visuals, right? Like these aren't yoga pants, people. These are actual pajamas. And so you gotta have those moments of clarity of, oh, okay, so yes, I'm in business. I need to have enough product in that case to go ahead and bring to market. I had some things on the agenda already, some different shows and so forth. People with stores were willing to give me the space. And so I had this deadline. So that was a moment I knew I was in business. There's others when you go places by choice to connecting events, I call them, not networking. I don't use the N word. And you're talking about it and you hear yourself talk about it. That makes a lot of things very real, as we know, right? Once you voice that and you hear yourself and somebody then asks you a question, because face it, that other person, they assume you are because you just told them. They're not going to be all tied up in your mental gymnastics that's going on in your head. Like, oh, I'm legit. Do they know this? And blah, blah, blah. Like, oh yeah. Oh, okay. So you have a pillow company. So tell me about your pillow company. And well, they just like business as usual. There's a reason there's that saying, right? They think it's usual because you bring it up. Those are some of the very memorable moments for me.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I don't think anybody has answered that question quite that way. And it's my favorite question in the whole interview.
Oh, yeah?
My audience know that's one of my favorite questions because every single person answers it differently. I don't think in 100 and something episodes there has been the same answer. They're kind of they swing around similar sorts of things, but it's always it's such. Whereas many of the other questions have very similar answers. That one's so. But I love what you say there about. The person that you're talking to believes that that's what your business is because why would they not? And how fantastic is that to remind people who get caught up in that imposter syndrome or who get caught up in what you call mental gymnastics. I love the way you described that. And I hope if anyone listening missed that, just go back a couple of minutes and listen to what Ginger said again. Because it's very powerful actually as a way to really counter what tortures so many people is this real? Okay, so let's fast forward a bit because I think what I'd like you to talk about now is around this business that you currently have around connecting. So how did you know as you're doing this examination of where you are that customers want what your business is offering now? Because this is the perennial question for people, is particularly service-based people. There's a lot of people listening want to start their own service-based business. You've talked about a product and a pillow business, which I might just say might have been different today because of Instagram and things. Can you just imagine the fun you could have had with that?
Massively different. Even the business I started 10 years ago or 12 years ago now. That would be massively different. You're right.
Yeah. And similarly, I started a sleepwear product business in around about the early 2000s, which if I was doing that today would be such a different, because the social media would just allow it to expand in a different way. Anyway, they may come back, our pillows and our sleepwear. So how do you know? Let's answer that question. How do you know customers want what you're offering?
That was a big part of my decision to choose human connection, Ingrid. So a good friend of mine helped me realize that connectivity was what it was going to be, very incidentally. I won't say accidentally. I don't believe in accidents. I do believe in serendipity and incidents. And I realized it was something somebody wanted. And I love this question too, because as a marketer, I've got a couple decades of marketing in my background too. Marketing is communication. Communication is connecting. I freaking love marketing, Ingrid, because it is communication and because it's where relationships begin. It's where they can grow. It's where they flourish. It's where they end. It's all the whole ecosystem of relationships. And I'm not talking the counselor kind of relationships. I'm talking about being able to wave at your neighbor and being able to conduct business and be able to be you fully and choose the relationships you want. So I knew I was onto something. To answer your question, when people would come to me and say, Ginger, you're so good at this, and this was meeting people or knowing people or walking fearlessly into a room and striking up a conversation with anybody, I finally paid attention to that. I'm like, oh, they think I know something. And I'm very strong in who I am, and I feel very comfortable and confident. I just hadn't thought of that piece of what I bring to life and how it is who I am, and I love it, and I am good at it, and it takes a lot of work, right? Like I wasn't a quiet kid, but I've also seen people and watched people and learned and practiced and tried stuff. For example, you ever been somewhere, Ingrid, you see somebody just, I don't know, a few meters away, and you raise your hand to wave at them, and then in that second that your hand is at the height of the wave, you realize it's not the person you thought it was, right? I will be the one who will keep waving like, oh my gosh, I thought you were Ingrid. Ha 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 ha. And then you meet somebody new. One of the stories in my book, The Connectivity Canon, is about how I actually sat on a gentleman's lap thinking it was a friend of mine, and it was not my friend, but he became my friend. Like, you've got to be willing to put yourself out there. So when people started saying, Ginger, you're so good at this, how do you know so many people? I thought, oh, I can offer this. I can teach this. I can help people grow their confidence in getting out in the world and learning how to connect with people. That was the magic moment.
Wow. That is, I think I'm the one that would wave still, but I'm not sure I would sit in someone's lap.
Please do. Because there's great people waiting.
Absolutely.
We all laugh at it. It brings us together.
And today more than ever, we've got this whole connectivity. I don't want to call it crisis, because a bit like you, I think language is so powerful. But there is a real thing around connectivity and how we're connecting today being quite different to how we've done it in the past. Now, you mentioned your book, so just shamelessly promote yourself in your book right now, because I actually don't have any deliberate advertising on this podcast, because, I can't stand it when you're listening and then something jumps in about something that's almost irrelevant. But your book's relevant, so tell us about your book. Where do you find it, and how do people get it?
Certainly. So the canon, the connectivity canon, I'm not a non-lofty person. It's actually my second book. And it was an interesting one to write. I believe that most listeners won't be able to see us, but I'm holding it up.
Oh, hold on. Let's do a screenshot. Wait. Let me put let's just do a quick little screenshot. Oh, no, put yourself in it too, please. There you go. All right. Thank you.
It's called the Connectivity Canon. When I set out to write this one, Ingrid, I wanted it to be very instructional, because when people were asking me, well, how do you do this? I thought, oh, hardware coming back, the how to cook, how to make, how to do, how to create. I love the tactical. I think you do too. Yeah. And being able to build, so you want to start a business. Well, you're talking about building. And so while the theory is important, and there is some theory in why do we want to connect to begin with? And that's not just theory, that's life, that's mindset, that's purpose, vision, all kinds of that. I teach that every single time I teach connectivity, human connection. So you have to know our why. We got to know where that's coming from first. And then I realized in the writing that all the tactics came out. That was so much fun, because the day the elements made themselves known, the rocket was launched, right? To use your analogy. I realized that there was actual steps I was following. I wanted to deconstruct it so people could use this as a tool. My picture is in the book. I'm not important to this. What's important is people get this and use it. It has orange goldenrod colored pages. It's very different. It's a small format. It's hardback. So my marketing brain kicks in. If you want to start a business and you want to do something appreciably different, that's called differentiation, then you're going to want to look at what are people connecting with. And there's a ton of space in the book so people write. And I hear, thankfully, because I encourage people to do that people are writing. It's your tool. Use books, write in books if they're yours. Get the books you can write, like your book, Ingrid. Like, everybody listening should have that darn book, because it doesn't matter where you're at in the ecosystem of your business, you're going to refresh, you're going to use something new, you're going to see something different. Like Marie Forleo says, how do I use this? Not the, yeah, I know that. So the canon is all about why and how to connect. We talk about the why, the mindset, the 5 tactics. I also talk about permission slips. And I love the permission slips, Ingrid, because in any day and age, there is all kinds of influential circumstances and factors and so forth. And to feel inundated and penned in and pressured to connect with everybody, which is the wrong word, really, then never to release some of that either, that becomes a buildup, that becomes a log jam. And that's not good for connection, because pretty soon we think we have to stay in touch with everybody. Well, here's the juice, people. Don't put that pressure on yourself. Just like that post that you wrote on LinkedIn that I put up on my LinkedIn today. I love that, because you're talking about perfection in that post. And I think it was from 2016. Like, this is relevant right now. This will be relevant in 20 years. What I talk about is, it's about participation. That's what human connection is. It's not about perfection. It's participation, never perfection. Perfection is an imperfect concept. Even Mother Nature is not perfect. We just need to look at it as participation. And so the canon goes through and talks about a lot of things. When I keep that person in mind who says, Ginger, you're so good at this, how do I do this, is what they're asking. That's what I want to teach. I want to give people that grace and the tactics and the tools to learn how to connect. So that's where the book came from. It is not about my ego. I mean, I sell them on my website, gingerjohnson.com. They are not on Amazon. The people who want them intentionally find them. My audiences, some of my clients will buy them for the whole room at the conference or the meeting, the workshop series. And that really makes me very happy, because they take it with them and it's a permanent tool for them. Again, It's not about, like, if you're in business and you're thinking about writing a book, get super duper crystal clear on why you think you want to write a book. The world does not need another piece of paper just to have another piece of paper, another ebook. Let's make sure it's worth something and you have something appreciably useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And if anybody wants that book, gingerjohnson.com, it's right there on the website.
Right.
Okay, so to your business. So you have the book, you obviously run workshops, you speak. How did you create some viability and pricing? Can you talk to us about money? Because we have to make money. How do you in this situation, maybe not the pillows and what's come since then, but in this connection iteration, like, what do you do? How is it viable? Where do you get your money from? How do you decide pricing? Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for talking about this, Ingrid. Not enough people are talking about money. Talk about sex quicker than we talk about money. Let's talk about money. Well, it's true. So when we're talking about money, how is my business viable? If that's one chunk. Yeah. My business is viable because, first of all, I'm bound and determined to build the life I want. And that requires money. Money is a tool. I am really glad that I grew up with a positive money mindset. I was taught how to manage my finances. I still have my first original checkbook register. Raise your hands right now if you're listening to this and this is you. Like, do yourself a money dance, because you're really fortunate, truly. For those of you who struggle with money, find help, get help, because you've got to understand money as a tool. My business has become viable because of all those 17, 18 other years of almost experiment, if you think about it that way, Ingrid. I was listening to one of your other interviews, a woman who had the candle company. Her name escapes me at the moment, forgive me. but she has a PR company and she has candles and so forth. And she talks about how she was making money with those and so forth. And I loved listening to that episode because when I think of what I do with the speaking, teaching, i.e. workshops and coaching, I think, okay, how do I construct the income I want to make? And so what I do is I reverse engineer. So say I want to hit $250,000 in gross revenue. And we need to know the difference between gross and net. We need to know the difference between income, P&L, all these things. And everybody is still learning, by the way. I'm still not an expert and I've been doing this for a long time. Keep learning, keep open. So what I do is I reverse engineer that. On my wall in front of me as we're talking, I've got a chart where I've mapped out how I want to make my money this year. And so what that does is that helps me get really clear on the conversations I have, on who I approach, on who I don't approach, on how the words come out, how I formulate my communications, because connecting is marketing and that's communication. I've invested deeply in myself, Ingrid, to grow myself. So in the last 3 or 4 years, when I think I knew the super tanker turn was coming and I started really going deep into my own education again. And it's been worth every single penny because all those things, there's a bunch of big fat binders next to my desk of those programs and the books. And I'm a voracious reader learning about money. One really excellent resource is Profit First by Mike, and I can't pronounce his last name, but Profit First is an outstanding book to help people who are very unclear about money on how to look at money. You've got to pay yourself first, for example, Ingrid, you know this well.
Yeah.
If you don't pay yourself, you can't take care of anything else. And you can't not draw some payment for yourself. And so find a system, because there's lots of different ones out there, of how you do that. So I like to reverse engineer. I help my clients think about it that way too. Oh, you want to do this? Okay, then stop doing this, start doing this, go here, learn this, read that, and be the student to learn about your money.
Absolutely. That's Mike Michalowicz is the Profit First book that you're talking
fantastic.
about there.
Lays it all out very simply.
Totally. And in fact, I'm just thinking a previous guest has talked about that, but I think the podcast hasn't gone live yet. If you're not paying yourself first, then you just don't have a business.
It's like not feeding yourself first. You can't get by without that fuel. And again, if we think of money as a tool, as fuel for your business, and some of the people who say, well, I was talking to a woman earlier this week. She has her own dental hygienist business, which is fantastic. She's not a dentist, but she can do darn near everything. And she says, I have a conflict between serving and making money. And she stopped me cold because I thought, oh my gosh, you need to put both of those together. Those should go together, because when you're serving, you should make a good living.
Yeah, a lot of my listeners, a lot of my clients are in health professions, and they get into health because they want to help people and they want to make a difference to health and well-being, and they're very conflicted between wanting to ask for money and being able to, provide service. It's so important, that profit first.
Yes.
And for people listening, the candle lady is Angela Sobrano, and I have to say, I had a bit of a girl crush on Angela. I don't know if it comes out in the interview, but I think she's got an amazing business. She's learned some really good lessons, and she talks about them in that interview. But I love there what you said about reverse engineering, that how much do you pay yourself? How much does this business need to make to sustain it? And then what do we charge clients?
Right.
So when it comes to pricing, how you charge for what you do. Yes. I get it that you want to figure out how much you're going to work and how much you want to pay yourself. How do you then, and we don't need to talk about how the specifics of what you charge, but how do we talk about pricing? How do we come up with a price? How do you talk to clients about that amount of money?
Right. So I'm happy to talk about specific figures if that's helpful, Ingrid.
Yeah, it's up to you.
So, for example, I'll use my speaking. My entry level for speaking right now is $7,500 for a 90 to 120 minutes. Now, within that, at this point, I've spoken for decades. I'm really concentrated on it now. So, with all that background, I have a really good read on how much time I'm investing in it. I don't charge by the hour. I think that's a dangerous mentality, because then we're looking at the clock and not the value. You are the summation of all your experience, just like anybody else who's an expert. So I know at this point how much time it approximately takes So that's what I factor in. That's a big part of my pricing. Coaching, I look at that too. How much energy, time, resources, and by the way, you do need to calculate that at first to get yourself an idea. And if you're just starting out, then by all means, if that's a workable solution for you, please do that. And then get to the point where you graduate. And there are a lot of great resources. I think of Barbara Stanny's Secrets of Six-Figure Women, another outstanding book that talks about money, like how to charge for what you think you're worth. Mm-hmm. So you start experiencing how much time something takes. That factors into that engineering of, well, I want to gross 250, which by the way is not my income, to be really clear. Of course I want to like have income for 250, but then I'm grossing $1 million. Yes. So it's your team. It's all the things like Sarah, who has been in touch with you, Ingrid, to make this happen. Like I know what I want to pay her, and then all the things around that. So when I'm looking at my pricing proper, I'm factoring in how much time do I invest to do a great job with what I'm doing, with who I'm doing it for. And then that's where that really starts to come clear. Now, a lot of people struggle with money. You and I both know this. A lot of people don't charge enough. There's all kinds of issues around that. I'm going to challenge people to start edging their prices upward. I have a wonderful coaching client, young man, and he struggles because he's got that service over income mindset. We need to change that to service means income. And so I challenged him. I said, I'll just call him Jim. Hey, Jim, you're going to promise yourself right now, he's not promising me, you're going to promise yourself that you're not going to give it away free anymore. And that was hard for him. I said, look, you can't change the world if you're not making money. Yeah. And this doesn't mean gouging. It doesn't mean being greedy. It means being real about what your needs are. And frankly, like one of my friends says, Jonathan Christian, brilliant marketer, says, people who pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for reminding us of that one.
Yeah.
People who pay attention.
Yep. Yeah. Look at how deep you're willing to go to help your clients and what is it you offer. You can do some comp shopping, some comparative. Also know that there's always room for one more good one. And if you're that good one with that special expertise, then go ahead and set that bar high. It's going to feel weird. There's no doubt about it. If you're not used to it, it's going to be different, foreign, uncomfortable. And then your confidence is what's important. Confidence is a skill like anything else. You can go ahead and nudge that up because the right people are waiting. There's plenty of money in this world, people. I will say it again. There is plenty of money in this world. Do not give yourself away for free, because if you're in an industry also, you're going to, quite frankly, screw the rest of them if you give it away for free, because it makes it harder for them. Can't tell you how many people want me to speak for free. I'm like, no, this is a profession. So if you want what I have to say, you get to pay for my decades of experience. Does that help? Is that kind of what?
I think that's exactly what, people, I think the more times, because we hear this over and over again, it's about the value we're providing, it's the experience that we're bringing. Yes. And I had a wonderful guest recently say that, when you have someone who has expertise in a very short space of time, they can help you solve the issue. So, if you think about a physical therapist, or you think about, somebody who does hands-on work, if you go to somebody who is really good at what they do and they fix your issue, and you can then march through the rest of your week, or you can sleep at night, it's priceless. Like you'd pay anything for whatever the solution is that they give you. So, yeah. Okay, so moving on to our next question. If you could take a magic wand and go back and undo something you've done or do something differently, and I know we can't, and it's lessons learned, and I get all of that, but what might you do differently, Ginger, along the way? What's some lessons that you've learned, or a lesson in particular that you would share with the audience? Because we're here to learn from the mistakes of others.
Right. Be willing. Don't think about being ready.
Nice.
Willingness is the ability to believe in yourself, to seek, to be curious, to be interested, to try. You will never fail, Ingrid, if you try, ever. This culture of romancing failure is such a bunch of BS to me. Like, you don't fail. The only way you fail is if you don't try. You don't give yourself permission to do that. So it's being willing is everything. I mean, I've started a pillow company. I started a company studying women in beer that nobody else on the planet still has done. Like, who in their right mind is doing that? Well, good thing I got two sides of my brain, right? It's like, that's not it. It doesn't matter what's out there. It matters you're being willing. You're chasing something that means something to you, and you want to make it. You do need to make it viable if you want a business. If it's not a business, it's called a hobby, and have another source of income. But being willing is so critical. Like another one of the coaches who I've listened to, Bo Eason, says, you've got to take the coaching. That's being willing. You got to be willing, if you're a cook, to make something and have it turn out however you want to. It's not about having it match the perfection in your brain. It's about participating and trying, like, oh, that's interesting. I think next time I'll do it this way. Or maybe I'll go get help like somebody told me. That would be the second thing that I would talk about. Like, get help quickly, and help is a sign of strength. There's so many people out there willing. There's so many agencies. There's so many ways to get help, so to speak. But you got to be willing first.
Yeah, I really love that about being willing to try things. I think there was something pretty fabulous by Elon Musk came out that if you're not making mistakes, you're not innovating, because that's where innovation comes from.
Right,
and it makes me think of the light bulb. I mean, we all know that he made 1,000 attempts of a light bulb before Edison actually made the light bulb. So, we just need to remind ourselves that nothing happens perfectly. Go back to that silly word, perfection. It doesn't. That's not how it is. That's not how we grow and learn and do things. It's
right.
There's lots of businesses have come about by accident. The Post-it note, and there's some wonderful things where, they actually didn't mean to do that. So I think, when you're willing, you're not attached to the outcome.
Yes.
So therefore, if it kind of morphs into something else, it's like, wow, this is what I'm doing. It's not over here, it's this.
And you just hit on another concept, detachment. Detachment is that beautiful gift of understanding that, yes, you want to get to point B and you're at point A, but not being tied to absolutely having to jump this way or that way or this way. It's, it's like a river. Like, okay, I'll get to the mouth, but I'm just going to keep paddling and being willing to navigate that way. So you're so right.
Yeah, wonderful. So speaking of people helping and getting help, and you mentioned you've invested in yourself and your education, where do coaches, mentors fit into your journey? What sort of have you used, and how effective has it been? Who's helped you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I woke up to that early. So everybody who's listening, get yourself a coach and interview and vet them to make sure they're the right one. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of great ones. There's some that are not so great. So be on the lookout. Ask somebody who has had a coach on how to help you find the right coach. They have been critical. I call all my coaching, my husband and I call it my grad school. And because we've invested a very significant sum, and it keeps going. I will never not have a coach now, Ingrid, because I understand, just to your earlier comment, the right people, helpers, whatever capacity, whether it's a paid coach, an unpaid mentor, whatever, they will help you learn so much faster. And we're not talking about speed here. We're talking about getting to serve quicker. That's how I think about it. If I'm learning it faster, then I can get out there and do the juice better. Jen Sincero was the very first online program I took, which is an 8-week, quote, self-led coached program. Three kinds of things every week. We got a video, an audio, and a worksheet. And she said, a coach will help you solve in 3 minutes or 3 hours what would take you 3 years. And I remember thinking, that's really interesting. And that was just at the cusp of me getting into it. I love Jen's work. She's so spot on, because she's right with this. We think we can figure it out. Well, we can, but how much time in your life are you willing to give up to learn that, when somebody like you can help them so much quicker?
It's
huge.
It's so huge. And one of the things that I truly believe about coaching as well is that the same coach isn't forever. Like, I don't lock people into any kind of program. It's like 3 sessions, 6 sessions, go away, you're smart, come back, we'll do some more. It's this idea. I think people are terrified of being locked into something where they have to pay this a crazy amount of money every month or every week or whatever it is, and that they don't know. But I love what you said there about talk to other people, find out if they're the right person. podcasts like this, people get a sense of who you are and what you know.
Yes.
And vet people. But I think, the coaches have done themselves some sort of a disservice to a degree, because they've locked people into programs that cost thousands of dollars, and that might not be what they need. And
there's more and more choices these days, as you and I
absolutely.
There's a lot of independent, self-led live cast webinars. Then that goes all the way to the deep, immersive one-on-one. And for the record, whoever's listening, make sure that you know before you invest in a coach that the investment is in yourself. Yes, you happen to be paying that other person, but that other person is your coach. They are not your nanny. They are not going to do the work for you. This is you getting serious about your own personal growth. They are your guide. They are an expert. The right one knows what the hell they're doing, excuse my French, and they will help you by accelerating. They care about you. Yeah. And I've had everything from that $297 program up to a $20,000 mastermind. And I don't take any of it for granted, Ingrid. And you're so right. Your needs will grow and change, and so will your coaches. Just be sure to look out for where you can get that help. And it's out there. It's abundantly out there.
Yeah. And I think you're right. We can faffle around by ourselves and figure stuff out, but it takes so long, whereas the right person could just answer the question and you're on your way.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So back to you. Let's have a little more about Ginger as we come to the end of our conversation. So 3 characteristics, Ginger, and we've been talking to you for a little while now, so I reckon we can guess some of these. But what are...
You're asking great questions, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
3 questions. 3 questions. 3 characteristics that you have that make you successful in business.
Positive, effective, and enthusiastic. I've had to boil this down before, so people are like, how did she do that so fast? It wasn't just because you gave me the questions in advance, because I generally don't care about the questions in advance, quite frankly. I'm going to say the same thing no matter what. But those 3 I noodled on, because and I'm going to encourage everybody to do this. If you haven't done this already by listening to Ingrid's show, do this for yourself. Write a huge list of what you think makes you you. Boil it down until you have 3. And the positive side of me, there is always not just a silver lining. There's a darn rainbow somewhere. And let's look for the positive. It's infectious, it's contagious, it's all the right things. People are drawn to people who are happy magnets. And happy isn't initially giggling and laughing all the time. It means that they're confident, they have a sense of ease, they're excited about what they do, they're sharing with the world. So that positivity is really, really important. I do not associate with negative people. I get rid of toxic. I'm not willing to put my life into their drama. The effective, I really, truly, that is probably my biggest service component, is I want to be effective. I'm not out there just to make a paycheck. I'm out there to earn a living, earning somebody's trust and helping them build their life. That's why service, that's my definition of service, helping other people thrive and making a great living for myself at the same time. So I want to be effective. That's everything from language and writing, cooking, coaching, speaking, whatever that is. There's efficacy that is successful for people, and it touches people and it resonates. And enthusiasm, well, I got a little bit of that spare. And I used to get the comment all the time, and I still get it, Ingrid. And it's always really nice to hear, oh, you have so much energy. And for years, I didn't just dismiss it. I'm like, yeah, thanks. But was there something useful? Now, starting to turn that super tanker. Now I understand that energy is actually something people are seeking. And so if I can give that, I call that my juice. If I can give that to somebody, because I let it all unfold in the room, whether it's you and I coaching or you and 500 other people or 5 people or whatever, that energy everything is energetic. And so giving that energy so freely and so ruthlessly, enthusiastically, I love doing it. It's who I am. It is very helpful for some people because they're in the room often to be re-energized, to be reinvigorated, to know, to be seen. And me sharing that energy helps them know, hey, Ingrid, I see you. You're of value. I'm so glad you're here. That's plenty. That's sometimes everything somebody's looking for. That moves mountains, and that makes me feel great.
Yeah, and it goes with your positive. And, you know, what you're saying there feels so true for now, that it's very easy to get caught up in drama and get caught up in story. And these things are going on around us all the time. Yes. And, you know, now more than ever, the world needs people to help us see that there is light and that there is, hope, and that, you know, because it can feel, you know, and we've had a pretty tough few months in Australia. It can feel like there's a lot going wrong, and you know, it's so super important, and everywhere in the world's the same. There's stuff going on. So thank you so much for your energy and your positive. Okay, so as we wrap it up, just you've answered this to some degree about making sure that there's money. If you have an idea, you know, be willing rather than just waiting for everything to be ready. But as we bring the conversation to a close, someone comes to you in that I want to start a business phase. What do you say to them? What's your takeaway for someone who's saying, I'm in the early stages or I'm thinking about starting a business?
I would say, tell me why you think you want to do that. I want to hear their story and where they're coming from, because there's a lot of romance around being a business owner. There's a lot of romance around being an entrepreneur, or whatever you want to call yourself. The reality is that, yes, it is magical. And it's a lot of different work that we reframe. When people say, oh, you have so much freedom being in your own business, I'm going to flop that around and say, I have flexibility. I can work at midnight. I don't have to be there from 8 to 5. But there's also, you know, I would never say sacrifice, Ingrid. I would say it's a negotiation of what you want your life to be. So I would ask people, tell me why you think you want that, and let's unpack that a little bit. Make sure you're doing your homework, finding the resources, that you're not setting yourself up to immediately be so short-sighted, because we all really, truly want each other to succeed. I believe that in my heart of hearts. Yeah. And so to help somebody think through a little bit more, if that question is enough for them to say, hadn't thought about that. I'm going to keep going and think about that, and then ask somebody. I'm going to send you over to my friend Ingrid now, because she's probably got another question for you. So we keep going that way, to keep opening and keep thinking and so forth, not to get caught in analysis paralysis, but to be thoughtful on some of the key components.
Oh, that is, you know what? I think that's a beautiful place to draw this to a close. Ginger, thank you so much. And, you know, find the people. I think the message there is find the people who'll ask you the good questions.
Yes. Honest questions, constructive questions. The people who care about you will ask you the hard questions, and you just love them up, because if other people don't, then the ones who do are really doing you a huge service. So
indeed. Thank you so much for your time today.
Ingrid, what a ball. I can't wait to get together and keep this going. So thank you very much. What an honor and privilege.
No, thank you for making the time today.
Thank you so much for listening to another terrific business startup story. Ginger was pretty terrific, wasn't she? And I love what we were talking about there at the end, about the people who ask you the tough questions, who ask you the delving questions. So what are your standout moments? I'd really love to hear from you. Leave us a review. You know where to do that. 5 stars if you could. Also want to let you know, I have set up a Facebook group, and it's called Healthy Numbers Profit Lab. And it's the community for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to build and grow a profitable business. Head over to Facebook and look for the group, Healthy Numbers Profit Lab. There's a couple of questions to answer, and then once you're in the group, you'll find a growing community of business owners. Every Monday I go live at 12 noon Sydney time and talk about the things that will help you in business: mindset, money, cash flow, profit, paying yourself, and much more. I am known for being able to make complex simple. All those complicated things in business, I'm all about making business easy to understand. Just this morning on our live, someone asked me, what happens if I'm scared of the numbers? And my answer is, I totally understand. And once you've been working with me, you will no longer be frightened of your numbers. You'll love them. Truly, that is my guarantee to you, my wonderful listeners. As you work with me, you will come to love your numbers. Make it easy to always know about the latest episodes on the podcast by subscribing. And as we always say, ideas without action, well, that's what they are. They're ideas. So what action are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.